Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this session. I hope you've had a full day already of attending sessions, and I hope you're enjoying it so far. If you've been to some of the other ones. So I'm delighted that we've got Trish Bartley with us here today. And I'll pass you over to her, and I'm sure she'll tell you a bit more about herself. But Trish is an expert in mindfulness and cancer, and has had cancer herself, so kind of understands it from that angle as well. And she's written some books about it, which I'm sure she'll mention as well. But she's here today to talk about those experiences, to share with us about mindfulness and her work with mindfulness and cancer. And so I hope you enjoy it. I shall spotlight you now and hand over to you, Trish.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. We probably need a few more people on mute if that's possible. Yeah, that's great. If there's any chance that you could show your video, it would be so lovely, because then I had a chance of connecting with you. So those of you who are able to, this is going to be more of an interactive session. It's not just going to be me talking and teaching you. It's going to be an opportunity for you to, to step in and take part, and perhaps share some stuff on chat or in the main room if you wanted to, if that works for you. So it'd be really lovely to see you if that's at all possible. And if you're in your jammies, that's so welcome. It's great. Yes, absolutely. My housemates here are in their jammies. I think Saturdays are great for jammies, PJs. Yeah. So yes, please come in. If you possibly can, and don't worry at all what you're wearing. It's great. It's great. It's really good. Okay, so it's lovely to see you all. I can see the odd face that I might just recognize, one in particular. Oh, good, Lauren. You're still in your PJs. And where are you, Lauren? Let me see if... Oh, yes, there you are. You're in your PJs. Great. And I'm seeing from Kelly, she can't get her video on. Oh, keep trying, Kelly, because I'd love to see you if you possibly can. Get your video on. It'd be great to see you. So, yes, huge welcome. I've been really looking forward to this. So impressed with Shine. I had cancer myself when I was under 50. I was quite close to 50, but just under 50. And yeah, I would love to have had. I mean, obviously that was a fair time ago, but I would love to have had an organisation like Shine to connect with, and you guys, a generation before you guys, if you see what I mean, would have been great. So I do wish you well, and it's lovely to have this connection with you. Okay, so let's just hear from you. I don't know if you've got the reaction button down at the bottom, but let's just hear from who's heard of mindfulness. Just put your reaction button up, maybe a thumb. Oh yeah, a hand will be great as well. Okay, quite a few thumbs up. Yeah, quite a few thumbs up. So quite a number of you have heard of mindfulness. Okay, so we'll wait for them to fade out, and then I'm going to ask you another question. So it's quite interesting because mindfulness is quite a broad kind of spread. A lot of people have heard of it, but a lot of people have got quite a lot of misinformation about mindfulness. So it tends to be assumed to be something you might, I don't know, get quite chilled around. Mindfulness equals relaxation. Would that be so for you? Or yes, Jenna May is nodding her head. Yep. Or mindfulness is about emptying the mind. That's another one that people hear about. Anyone? Yes, more of you. No, it's not. It's absolutely not. What else? What other kind of misnomers are there about mindfulness? Mindfulness is all about taking all your problems away, and I don't know quite what you do with them, but it's sort of like some miracle cure that kind of removes stress. Anyone come across that? Oh, that's a relief. Good. Oh, yes, a bit, Kareem. Yes, great. Well, it's not that. It's not that at all. So lovely to see you, Kainwen. Great. Keep your video on. That's great. So I'm going to share a few slides with you, but what we're going to do is we're kind of going to move in and out of slides. I'm going to ask you questions. You're going to come into chat. Just check in with some questions. you know, asked to speak and come through, it'd be lovely to have, you know, quite an interactive sort of session. That's going to be more useful for you, and it's going to be more interesting, I think. So let me start by just sharing with you what we're going to do. So can you see that okay? Emma, maybe just, can you sing out and tell me that? No, it's, yes, good.
Yes, I can see it.
Great. So here's lovely shine. So that's a good way of starting. So I thought that we call the session, it's really called Mindfulness and Cancer, but I thought I'd have a subtitle of, it's a kindly approach to being with cancer. So that's also a title of one of the books I've written, but I quite like that. It's a kindly approach, and it's actually being with cancer. It's not, it's kind of being real with it, if you like, and actually, you know, living with cancer, if you like, because that's what's going to be of most use. So what are we going to cover in this session? So the session's going to last for an hour and a half, more or less, perhaps a bit less than that. I want to give you a little bit of background into mindfulness, you know, where it started, what it's sort of focused on. A little bit about cancer and what mindfulness might offer you, and where you might get it, where you might access mindfulness. But we'll be talking more about that in the future. Oh, I think I've missed, yes, there we are. My transitions have gone wrong. A little bit about the workings of the mind. Very simple stuff, you know, nothing tremendously complicated. And most of all, I want to share some brief practices with you. I want you to go away with 2 or 3, but definitely 2 brief practices. And when I say brief, I mean less than a minute, you know, a few seconds. Things that you can do in the supermarket, things that you can do sitting waiting for a follow-up appointment, things you can do when you get a really tough thought and you're waiting for results, or you're hearing somebody who's had results. Anything that you might get triggered by. Very, very brief practices that you can just come back to. And then I've got a poem. I might have a couple of poems actually, but I've definitely got one. Yes, so let's just start with a brief practice. So this is my big oak bench. I hope you like it, with some rosemary on the road. So you can imagine that you're sitting on the bench in the middle. You might have a hand on the rosemary, and you might just give it a bit of a squeeze just to get a bit of a nice smell of that rosemary. You might have your feet on the floor of those stones with a few you notice there's a few. This is in Wales. There's a few flints. What are they called? Oh, it's gone. But anyway, there's little blue ones as well. So you're sitting on the bench, and the invitation is just to pause. So just like you two, you can do this with your eyes open. You don't need to close your eyes, but just pausing and just be noticing what's going on for me right now. So that's the question you're going to ask yourself. What's going on for me right now? So you might be noticing thoughts. You might be noticing mood, emotions. You might be noticing stuff that's going on in the body right now. But it really doesn't matter what you're noticing. You might be noticing sounds around you. You might be noticing, I don't know, people coming in and out of the room around you. But you're just stopping and noticing. So this is called the pause. Very, very useful. The pause. You're just interrupting. So I'm going to come out of the screen. I'm going to come out of the share so I can see you all again. Yeah, that's good. Lovely. So just give me some feedback on that. What did you notice when you paused? When you just paused and just ask yourself that question, what's going on for me right now? Anybody got anything they want to add into the chat? Or if you're feeling brave, you might actually speak, which will be even better. What did you notice when you just stopped and paused? Anything?
My struggle with mindfulness is I always just notice all the aches and pains that I normally trying to like do stuff to distract from, and it's just like oh yeah, I'm gonna have to move because I'm lying on my kind of hip.
Yep. Alison, that's so good to hear that. It's so good to hear that. And we'll talk a little bit more a bit later on about why it's useful for you for you to get in touch with your aches and pains, even though it's the last thing that we probably want to do. But that's great. So you stop and you notice discomfort in the body. And that then means you move, is that right? So you then respond to the discomfort. You kind of look after yourself in that discomfort, rather than just not noticing it, whereas it would probably kind of intensify. Great, absolutely great. Somebody else, something that you just noticed as when you paused. Oh, Victoria, lovely to hear from you.
Hi, I just felt so grateful. It's my first day doing something with Shine, and I feel really grateful to be part of it and the community and seeing everybody. So
lovely.
A strong feeling for me.
Yeah, so can I ask you, lovely strong feeling of gratitude. Where did you experience that? Was that just in the mind? Was that just thoughts, or was there something in the body that you might have
noticed? It was in the body as well.
Great. Whereabouts in the body?
Yeah, right.
Right in your heart. Isn't that great? That's lovely. Victoria, thank you. That's really great. So interestingly, and had you not paused, you might be aware of it anyway. I mean, it might be kind of around for you, but very often when we pause, we notice things that are quite important to notice. They might be positive, they might not be so positive, they might not be so pleasant, but they're important to notice. Let's hear from one more person. Just anything else that you noticed when you paused? Anything else you noticed when you paused? Yes, from Emma, where my shoulders are, they were a bit hunched. Oh, that's great. That's great, yes. We often, we lose our necks, don't we? Because our shoulders come up. Yeah, or we hunch. I can see Cameron just sitting up, and I know I've got rounded shoulders, which is not great. But that's great. Oh, and Jenna May, you notice you're hungry. Can you get some food and eat while you're there? You got some food, great. Chocolate biscuit, excellent, yeah. That's great, because it's important to notice that you're hungry. It's important to notice. Excuse me, it's important to notice that your shoulders are hunched. Or that hang on, I'll take a mouthful. Got a tickle. It's important, all that stuff, to notice. So, yes, so just be putting this pause, let's call it the pause, capital P, the pause. And it's very, very simple. It's just stopping. You just interrupt whatever you're doing for a minute to a second, a very short moment, and you just let this question drop in. What's going on for me right now? Right? What's going on for me right now? And as Alison discovered, and as Kindwin discovered, it might be unpleasant what's going on right now. It might not be so nice. And actually our natural tendency, which I'll talk more about a bit later on, is to push the not nice away. It's completely normal. All animals, all little tiny insects do that. We withdraw. We want to avoid what we don't like. Of course we do. But actually there is great value in noticing, like Alison was saying, there's value in noticing, actually, this isn't so comfortable, let's move. Jenna May noticing she's hungry, let's eat. Kindwin noticing her shoulders were up. And it's a chance to release them. It's good. So we'll come back to the pause, but that's quite useful. Okay, so I've lost my share. So Emma, would you be kind and come in with the slides, because for some reason they've disappeared and it'll take me a fuss to get them. If we could come in with that nice slide of the seat again, yeah. That would be great. And here comes somebody called Rebecca coming in. That's good. Can you find them, Emma?
Oh, yeah. I can, although it's in a different order, I think, than the ones you've...
Oh, well, don't worry. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Okay, let me just
bring them up, and that would be great. For some reason they've disappeared. I'm using two screens, which is great, but it's a bit complicated. And for some reason they disappeared, which was a mistake.
Oh gosh! And for some reason it's not. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry. Let me see if I can get them up. Here we are. Have you got them? No. Let me see if I can share the slide again. Here we are. No.
Okay, just bear with me a second. I think it's only allowing me for some reason to share my whole desktop, so I need to just
okay,
get rid of everything else that's on there.
All right.
Let's just
yes, I can do it now, Emma. I'm all right. I'm back
okay.
again.
I'll stop.
I'm back again. There we are.
Ah, there we go. Okay.
All right. So there we are. We were on that with the pause. And you're okay. You can see all right. Yeah.
Yes.
Great.
Thanks.
So we were with the rosemary. We were with the bench, and we were pausing. What's going on for me right now? So what I want to do now is just to link you in a little bit with a background of mindfulness, just so you've got a little bit of an idea. It's a bit more than just mindful colouring or mindful dog walking or whatever else, mindful bubble bath. It's a bit more than that. So it all started with a guy called John Kabat-Zinn, which some of you may have heard of. He's quite an amazing guy, actually, American. And he had this idea that perhaps you could produce an 8-week course, which he called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR. A number of you, I'm sure, will have heard of MBSR. It's the kind of American, but it's the one that tends to get taught to public, general public, just any of us get stressed. And he chose stress because it wasn't stigmatizing, which actually I think was brilliant of him. Yeah. So that was John Kabat-Zinn, and then it got picked up very fast. Okay, so my thing doesn't want to move on. Isn't it a bore when it does this? So for some reason it doesn't want to move on. Let's see if I can do it. Oh, okay, great. So then it got picked up by these 3 guys here who are clinical psychologists, and they are pretty amazing, very, very sort of brilliant minds. And they were tasked with looking at depression, and they were tasked with looking at people who had recurrent depression. So they'd go on antidepressants, and then they'd have a relapse, and they'd go on and again. And they were looking at perhaps producing some kind of a course that might help people who had recurrent depression. And so they produced this. This program, this 8-week program, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy for depression, and they came up with the results, which were absolutely extraordinary, and it was revolutionary in terms of psychological impact. So basically, the outcome was that if people did an 8-week course along these lines, MBCT for depression, then 50% of them would not relapse. 50% of them stayed well for, I can't remember how long, several years. And that's huge. I mean, that's a really big outcome. And incredibly impressive. And it really changed the whole impact of mindfulness across the world, actually. So it was very big. Okay, now I've still got my problem. Why aren't you working? For some reason, it doesn't want to go on. What did I do last time? There we are. See, you've got to go 1 step forward and 2 back. Okay, and then I came along, and don't imagine that this is anything like as brilliant as the depression one, but it's a good course. It's based on MBCT. It's based on the original MBSR. But what I did is that I adapted the MBCT for depression, and I adapted it for cancer. And I'd had cancer myself. And I was interested in teaching mindfulness. I was teaching meditation before that. I was working with management people, actually, and various groups, but mostly social work managers. And so I was teaching them a series of sort of meditation-based, grounding-based interventions. And then I got cancer myself and went on the first retreat of the MBCT people. And I remember talking to Mark Williams, who some of you, I don't know if any of you have met him, but he's an amazing, very lovely guy. And I said to him, well, I'd love to teach mindfulness, but I don't quite know what I'm going to come out of the share. I don't quite know what I'd teach. What could I teach? Well, we were on an island at the end of Wales, and I had no hair because I was mid-treatment. And he was amazing because he didn't say, oh, well, you can teach cancer people, can't you? Because he was much too skillful for that. He just I noticed his eyes glancing to the top of my completely bald head and saying, oh, I don't know what you could teach. What do you think? And so I said, well, I guess I could teach people with cancer because I know quite a lot about it now. And he said, I guess you could. And he then opened doors for me. And he opened doors in the Bangor hospital. Quite a small oncology department. I mean, people in there there only are about 12 beds in the day centre. So I mean, there's only about 12 people having chemo at a time. Bit bigger now. And the department, you know, the oncologists and the clinical nurse specialists and so on, they none of them had heard of mindfulness. But because Mark was so brilliant and such a nice guy and very persuasive, very charismatic, very persuasive, he kind of opened doors for me. So I started teaching, not realizing that nobody else in the UK was doing it. No other oncology department had some mindfulness classes. And he, with his team, you know, and the various people that we've been working with, who of course had been giving me chemo not that many months before, they then recruited people, and that was in 2001, so it was a long time ago. And those classes continued until I left Wales, which was 2020. So I was teaching something like three a year. And it started very small, but it sort of built. And then the book came out. Yeah, so it sort of went on from there. Yeah, I was teaching people much like you guys. Some people with lots of hair, some people with not very much, some people with different sorts of cancers, some people quite well, some people not very well. It was good. It was good. And in the end, probably by the time I left, because I've now moved closer to my family, by the time I left, I'd taught many hundreds of people with cancer. And more importantly, I'd trained other teachers, other mindfulness to teach MBCT for cancer. So although it's not tremendously widespread, it is now available at different parts of the country. And if any of you want to, and Antonia's nodding her head, if any of you want to, you know, see if I can put you in touch with local teachers, I could certainly try to, although I'm not particularly well networked in. That's not where I come from, really. So any questions before we move on? Any questions about any of that? I might just add, while you're perhaps thinking if you want to add a question, might just add that I started teaching in 2001, having finished treatment in 2000. And then what happened is that I got cancer again. I had breast cancer. So I had bilateral. I had one side, one the other side. And they were both primaries. And so I moved from being a teacher on the unit into being a patient, and that was very tough. That was tremendously tough. I mean, I had mindfulness behind me to really help me manage treatment, manage the whole situation, but it was very tough to actually be having treatment alongside people that I'd taught, because it was kind of a change of role, and it was tough to become a patient again. But I learned. And I think probably it improved my teaching. It improved my mindfulness practice. It made me a little bit more in touch, really, with what it was all about. Yeah. And then later on, I brought out a book for people with cancer themselves, which I'll tell you about a bit later on. So any questions before we move on a little bit? Anything you want to ask? No?
Hi, Trish.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Do you know if they teach this course in Oxford, in any of the hospitals?
They used to teach it in Maggie's in Oxford.
Okay.
But I'm in Oxford, so you know, that's a possibility.
Okay.
So in principle, yes.
Okay.
You can certainly access mindfulness in Oxford. So get in touch with me afterwards. I'll look out for my email. Give me an email, and I'll let you know where you might access it. So thanks for that, Amaya. Have I got your name right, Amaya?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Thank you.
Great, lovely. Thanks, Amaya, for asking that. Any other questions before we move on? And just to say what I said before is that, you know, pajamas are very welcome on the screen. You know, really, it would be so nice to see your faces. So if you can bear to show your video, it would be lovely, really lovely, because then it's a little bit more interactive. Yeah. Okay, so we've got a little bit of the background of mindfulness and cancer, a little bit, and it's, I think, really just to emphasize that mindfulness quite strongly evidence-based. So there's some good research behind it. There's somebody in Canada who has produced some phenomenal research around mindfulness and cancer. Great, thanks, Amaya. Nice to see you. And so you know, this is evidence-based, much of it, which is great. Early days for cancer, yet it mostly tends to be people with breast cancer, prostate cancer. It doesn't tend to be the full spread of mindfulness in different forms of cancer. But we can certainly extrapolate out to show that there's good evidence that mindfulness is helpful. So let's look at how it might be helpful. So we're probably going to have the same little dance, Emma, because okay, no, it's there. Great. Let's see. Excellent. Good. So let's see if we can go to the next one. Yes, we can. Fantastic. So I love this picture. So this is drawn by an extraordinary artist in Wales called Maria Hayes. And I don't know about you, but I think it's really beautiful. It's this person could be white, could be black, could be old, could be young. It strikes me that they've probably got a bit of a headache, or there's something going on in the head. You see there's sort of a kind of collection of sort of almost like energy up there. And they seem to have something going on in the heart, which I think is also very salient, you know, very, very significant. I think the other thing about this is that it's just like, do you remember we said that when you hunch your shoulders, you lose your neck? So this person has got quite hunched shoulders, there's quite tightness in that body. And there's no feet. So I think that's quite significant. There's no groundedness. There's no connection between the bottom of the body, or the feet of the body, and the ground itself. And I think that's what we do when we get stressed. We lose contact with the ground. We lose contact with the body itself, but we lose contact with a sense of the ground that's beneath us. And that's pretty problematic. And it's one of the things we're going to be focusing on quite a lot in this session. So that's closing. And actually, I'm going to skip forward, and that's opening. Now, there's no sense of suggesting to you that, you know, before doing mindfulness, you'd be more like the person who looks like closing, and that after you do mindfulness, there's more like this sort of movement, flow, dance, and groundedness. Notice those feet; they're very much in contact, aren't they? You can see where the ground would be. You can see that the one foot is actually flat on the ground, the other one has just got toes on the ground. And there's a sense of flow, isn't there? A sense of movement. And again, could be male, could be female, could be black, white, young, old. It's really whatever we interpret in the picture. It's very lovely, isn't it? But actually, you know, which one of it was you? Victoria said how grateful she was feeling in touch with shine. You know, this picture to me is as much about connecting with the body, connecting with others, connecting with a sense of life energy, you know. And I think it's so beautiful. I'm having them printed at the moment, actually. I can't wait to frame them and get them up on the wall, because I think they're really lovely. So I just want to sort of share now with you the one in between. So this is like the model, if you like, of MBCT for cancer. And models are of limited value, but let's just see if I can just point out. So can you see Emma, can you see my cursor? Can you see my arrow? Yeah?
Yes, I
Right.
can.
Okay. So you remember we had that picture of the person with hunched shoulders, with like a headache and something going on in the heart, and that was closing. And then above it is tightening. So it's the closer we are to suffering, with cancer right in the middle of suffering, the closer we are to this tightening, the more likely we are to tighten and close. And I could tell you more about this model, but I think just to kind of point out that there are these 4 words that are pretty important. Trauma is something we experience a lot of in cancer, inevitably. At some point or other, it's likely that you'll have experienced some level of trauma, perhaps quite a significant level. And then there's this rumination. This is where the mind endlessly goes off and gets stuck in a kind of repetitive pattern of thoughts, repetitive what if, what will happen if, what if this happens, what if that happens. That's known as rumination. It's sort of a bit like, the cow chews the cud, they ruminate, they kind of chew and chew and chew. And we do that often in the middle of the night. Rumination, it's very unpleasant. And inevitably, with rumination, the mood drops. So the mood goes down. It's quite often that we can feel quite depressed when we ruminate. And then opposite rumination is avoidance, which I think I spoke of before. We try to push things away that we don't like, that we don't want. Completely natural, completely understandable, often makes things worse. And then distress is inevitable. So rumination and avoidance often lead to distress. And I'm not going to talk to you about the outside one because that's a bit more specialist. But there you have the sort of darker circle of suffering. And then in the middle here, this is the mindfulness intervention. So this hopefully is what people are learning on the course. They learn to be more intentional. We learn to come back, and I'm going to teach you quite a lot of coming back. We learn to turn towards, and I'm going to mention a little bit about that. And we very much learn to bring kindness to ourselves and to the situation we're in. So you see the circle of practice, and mindfulness is all about practice. It's a little bit lighter than the circle of suffering, a little bit lighter, and it's got mindfulness awareness in the middle of it. And then you have the circle of presence. So this is more when somebody's really established in mindfulness, that they've got it as a habit. They've got it as their mindfulness practice is something that they can turn to quite easily. And they've really established a habit of mindfulness. And so that they're more, a bit like Victoria was saying, appreciating the richness of experience. That's something that very much comes with an established mindfulness practice. Experiencing the ground, so that groundedness. Connecting to our common humanity, a sense of others are like us, is very helpful. And being able to just turn towards experience and actually be with it. So that's all quite big frameworks. You don't have to worry too much about that. But what is important is to notice this softening and opening. So the more that we can actually be present in a supportive way, the more we can actually open and soften and be more like the lovely creature who's dancing, who's flowing, who's got a sense of life. May well have cancer, may well not have any hair, maybe have some treatment, but just in moments, perhaps connecting with a sense of life and love and connection. Yeah. So let's go one more and just come back to our little bench. Yeah. And on the bench, just plonk yourself on it again. Just sit on that nice bench. Get your feet on the floor. Perhaps put your back against the plaster of the house. And maybe put one of your hands into the rosemary again, just to sort of get that little smell of rosemary. That kind of it's quite a sort of antiseptic, but it's a lovely, lovely sort of clean smell of rosemary. And this time, you're welcome to close your eyes if you'd like to, but just coming gently to a sense of your feet on the floor with your eyes open or your eyes closed, but just feeling your feet on the floor. Just feeling a sense of contact between the soles of your feet and what they're resting on. And those of you on the bed, you may be feeling your bum on the bed, on the mattress, maybe feeling your heels. Just wherever you feel a sense of contact with what you're sitting or what you're touching. Those of you on chairs, just feet on the floor. And just noticing points of contact. Just a sense of resting and a sense of awareness of the ground or the bed or the floor beneath you. Just awareness of something that's supporting and holding this body in this moment. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share. Yeah, come back to you guys again, which is nice. Great. So I'd love to hear how that was. So you're welcome to, if you don't want to move forward to go into the chat, you perhaps could just put your hand up and speak if you'd like to. Just how was it to feel your feet on the floor? What did that feel like? What did you notice when you did that? Oh, Victoria, I thought you were going to talk to me. You put your hand up. No. Could you do that? Could you feel your feet on the floor? Was that possible? Yes, Kynwyn.
Hi, Trish. I was just going to say, I think it's interesting, like my feet were on the floor before you told me to notice that my feet were on the floor.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's just interesting to notice things that you do all the time, and
exactly. Yeah,
you don't pay attention to.
Exactly. Absolutely on the button, Kynwyn. Yeah, brilliant. Anybody else experience that? That, you know, your feet were on the floor before, but you weren't really aware of them. Yeah. Was that true for anybody else? And just nod your head if that was the case. Yeah. Case for Amaya. Yes. So Amanda is saying, I felt more grounded and connected. Yes. Absolutely, Amanda. Why can't? Oh, there's my chat over there. Yeah, that's lovely. And Kelly, you felt more calm, or you felt calm. So it's interesting, isn't it? That's lovely. Thanks, Kelly and Amanda, for that. It's really great. So interesting, isn't it? That of course your body's on the bed, your feet's on the floor all the time anyway. Of course. But what we do is when we bring mindful awareness to that, it actually offers us the support of the floor. It offers us sometimes an opportunity just to feel that sense of, well, support, groundedness. People often talk about being more grounded. Remember my first ever grounding teacher used to say, and actually I think he was right, that the most powerful person in the room was the person who was most grounded. And powerful not in terms of abuse or, you know, not a nasty kind of powerfulness, but a sense of maybe influence, maybe kind of kind of presence, really. You know, and if, as we saw with that, do you remember that closing picture, you know, with the person without contact, there was no floor there was no feet there. And that's how most of us are most of the time. We're not aware of our feet on the floor. We're not aware of that sense of groundedness. And if we can just practice a little bit coming back to feet on the floor, you know, and we can do it anytime, actually. You know, it's a great time to do it when you're on the loo. It really is, because usually, not always, but usually the feet are on the floor when we're on the loo. And, you know, it's kind of not terribly interesting time really being on the loo. Yeah, I don't know about you, but it's not particularly interesting. So we can just, you know, just connect with feet on the floor. And you can just say to yourself, okay, there we are, there are my feet, there's the floor, great. And then move on to the next thing, whatever comes next. But I think what's important about feet on the floor is we can do it when we're sitting. So as a lot of you are sitting now, you can do it with your feet sitting. I mean, Hannah, you've got your feet up, but can you feel your heel touching something, or are your heels in the air? Yeah, your heels are touching. So you could connect with your heels and the contact with your heels on the floor, or whatever they're touching. Don't change anything. Jenna May, you're lying on the bed. So again, can you feel your feet? Can you feel your feet on the bed? Where would you, or is it easier to feel your bum on the bed?
Yeah, on the heel. I can feel them on the heel, yeah.
The heel, okay, great. So just be noticing, you know, where can we connect with the floor? So when we're sitting, it can be feet. When we're standing, it can be feet. When we're walking, you know, maybe just walking up the stairs or walking to the bathroom, or I don't know, walking to the mirror or the telephone or something, we could just a couple of times, you don't have to do it all the time, but just a couple of times, there's a foot, you know. And if you go outside and have some fresh air, you know, you might just come back to your feet on the floor every now and again. Don't have to do it all the time, but just, okay, when I get to that corner, I'm going to take a few steps with feet on the floor, yeah? So the idea is not to kind of, you know, bully yourself into having to do this all the time, because that's not going to work. But seeing if you can just come back every now and again to just this sense of contact, standing, sitting, walking, and in the bed. I mean, when you're either Jenna May were having a rest, or Hannah, you look like you're on a sofa or something like that, a couch, yeah? you can then feel where your body is in contact with what's supporting it. So it might be the back of the body, it might be the bum, it might be the backs of the legs. And in bed at night, it's a really good time to come back to. Perhaps you're awake in the middle of the night, perhaps have some ruminating going on. I mean, I don't know about you, but I can easily ruminate 3 o'clock in the morning, no problem. Need a pee because I'm getting older, which is a real pain to have to pee in the middle of the night, but it happens to us all. So you get up and you have a pee, and then you think, okay, so I'm pretty awake now. A friend of mine used to say, which was such a good tip, that if you need a pee in the night, only open one eye. So that you're kind of saying to the body, you go around with only one eye open. You're kind of saying to the body, you're not waking up. It's okay. You're just quickly just having a pee. And you're going back to bed. It's absolutely fine. And then you try and drop off to sleep. But often what happens is that you start ruminating. You start thinking about, I don't know, the next course of treatment or the next test or the kids or something that's worrying. It might not be cancer. It might be, goodness, there's enough to worry about in the world, isn't there? Oh, the news is pretty grim. I've got 2 Ukrainian refugees living with me, so I'm very kind of tied into Ukraine and the news there. So there's plenty to disturb us at night. So just coming back to, yes, Kynwyn.
Sorry, Trish, there was just a comment in
Yeah.
the chat, and I suffer
I missed
from
it.
this
Sorry.
as well, so I want to ask you. So no, it's fine. But Lauren had said, I find that my mind races and I feel quite unsettled when I stop and notice things.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for that? And Lauren said, I've heard it described as monkey mind, but I have that as well, that moment where you kind of stop and then all of a sudden it's like all the things that you've tried to push away just come crowded in. So how do you focus on your feet when you've got all this stuff going on?
Yeah. Kynwyn, thank you so much for pointing the chat out to me, because with my clever two screen system, my chat is over here and I'm talking to you here. So that's absolutely brilliant. Thanks, Kynwyn. Okay, so the mind races and you feel unsettled when I stop and notice things. Yes. So where's Lauren? There she is on her little tile. Do I have any advice for that? I imagine that fighting that feeling isn't likely to help. Well done, Lauren. You're absolutely right. Is it all about practicing? Yes, it is. It's all about practicing. But Lauren, what you might well find, if it's possible for you, is you might well find it helps to move. So I'm not gonna get people to move now, but if it's possible for you, when you're noticing that your mind is racing, if you can just stand up, if that's if you're in a place where that's possible, you can just stand up and move a little bit. Maybe look out the window, see if you can distract yourself and actually have something to get curious about. So don't get curious about your mind racing, because at this stage, before you've got to practice, that's going to be too much. Maybe I've got a nut here. I was eating some nuts before I started. Let me find a bigger one. I might just pick something up and just have a good look at it and then put it in my mouth and really taste it, really get interested in it. Yeah? So find something you can be curious about. Maybe a picture, maybe the window, the view out the window, and walk and move your body is helpful. Lauren, come back to me with the chat a bit later on and tell me if that sounds something that you could try and do. But if you can incorporate some of these short practices that I'm going to teach you, or I am teaching you, I think you'd find it's going to be easier to come back. So Victoria, mine did too, Lauren. Mind raced. Yep, quite get that. Monkey mind, Lauren, I've heard it described bouncing all over the place. Yes, it's about being human, okay? It's not about having cancer, it's about being human. I mean, having cancer and having any kind of life experience obviously is going to stimulate things, and it's tricky, but it is a question of coming back. Okay, my mind is racing. Yeah, okay, all over the place. What am I going to come back to? Can I come back to this moment, these feet? Maybe wriggle your toes a bit to actually get some noticing. No problem noticing when I'm touching the floor. It is not noticing it or feeling it I struggle with. Can feel all the creaky joints everywhere. Alison, yes, I really can understand that. And it's horrid feeling creaky joints. It's really horrid. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that in a minute. Okay, Lauren says that's helpful. Yeah, Kindman, please keep reminding me to look at chat. That's really helpful. Thank you. Excellent. Good. Okay. So I think that what we're going to do now, I'm looking at the time, we're doing fine for time. I think what we're going to do now is go back to sharing, and I'm going to do a little bit more about the workings of the mind. So good, I've got my PowerPoint still, that's a bit of luck. Okay, so there we have the opening, and just remember that the closing, no feet, right, hunched, not aware of the body at all, just aware of pain and suffering, which is where we go. It's completely understandable. Okay, so I want to do a little short practice with you before we move into the workings of the mind. So if you're willing to, and if this feels okay, this is a little bit more tender, but I think it's important. So if you're willing to, just quietly, if those of you on a bed, just lie down and be comfortable. Those of you sitting on a chair, then perhaps just sitting back in your chair and just letting yourself be as comfortable as you can be. Yeah, comfortable as you can be. And closing your eyes, if that feels all right. Just closing your eyes and noticing as you do that, just noticing the contact of the bed, contact of the chair, feet on the floor. Just noticing all the places where your body connects with what it's resting on. So maybe there's the contact with the back of the body, with the back of the chair or the back of the bed. Maybe you can feel your head on the pillow, those of you in bed, or on the couch, on the sofa. But as best you can, really coming to points of contact between your body and what is holding your body. You might even be noticing places where the clothing touches the skin a little bit. You might be noticing where your hands are touching each other, perhaps, or touching the bedding or your clothing in some way. So you're just noticing all the points of contact between your body and what's touching your body or what's holding your body. And in that moment, if it feels okay for you, just taking a breath. You're breathing anyway, but just perhaps noticing how the breath is moving in the body. So just noticing the breath rising and falling. And noticing if that's comfortable for you. And if it's not, then please don't worry, just move to the feet and the contact or the hands and the contact. And just ignore the breath if it's not so comfortable. But if it's okay for you, just noticing how the breath just moves the body in and out, expanding, releasing. And always remembering that any time the mind wanders off and perhaps moves away from the breath and the body, gets involved in thoughts or some kind of commentary, gets distracted, then it's not a problem. We just notice and come back. Just gently bring the mind back to some place in the body, the breath, feet on the floor, just some place where you can just get curious again. How does that feel? How does this breath feel? This big toe and the contact. And then as you sit here, breathing, in touch with feet on the floor, hands in the lap, whatever it is, then just dropping in this question, what is it that really matters to me, that perhaps mindfulness might support? What is it that really matters to me, that perhaps mindfulness could support? So just breathing with that, just breathing with this sense of intention, this sense of, it's almost like the direction that we're pointing ourselves in, a bit like a signpost pointing towards a footpath. What is it? What is my intention? What is it that matters to me, that mindfulness might help me with? So perhaps just breathing with that. Breathing with a sense of body contact, support, weight going down. Maybe a sense of the breath in the whole of the body, moving in, moving out. And if it notices, if you find that you've got lots of ideas about this question, that's fine. Or maybe not many. Maybe there's not much of a sense of, I don't know how mindfulness could help me. But if there's just some feeling maybe in the body, maybe some felt sense in the heart, in the chest, what might support me, that really matters to me? What might this contribute to? And then when you're ready, coming back to a sense of the body sitting or lying, coming back to a sense of the body breathing, coming back to a sense of your hands and whatever they're touching, your feet and whatever they're touching, the breath moving in the whole of the body. So I'm going to stop the share. Bring my cursor back, there it is. So how was that? Anybody want to put anything in the chat, and I'll make sure that I can see the chat this time. Anything about that experience, you know, whether it was pleasant or unpleasant or interesting or a bit vague. What did you notice? If anybody wants to talk rather than go in the chat, you're very, very welcome. Just put your hand up and sing out. Or just unmute yourself for those of you not showing your videos. Anything? Oh, okay. So from Amaya, we've got pleasant and somehow relaxing, Amaya. Yeah, it's interesting. Somehow relaxing. It's interesting that when we notice when the mind sort of settles in one place, it sort of gets a bit calmer, it sort of steadies up, and you gave the mind things to focus on. So the mind sort of steadies up and it's probably not quite so monkey mind. How about others of you? Lauren, how was your mind? Was it very monkey mind for you? And Alison, with a sense of the pain in the body, how was that? Let's just hear from a little bit more. Jonathan, thank you. Jonathan, it helped having the intention as it gave some sense of purpose to reduce overwhelm for me. Great, Jonathan. Good. Yes, I think that's right. I think very often we can feel quite overwhelmed when we just open up a space. If we can drop a question in, like what's going on for me right now, or what really matters for me that this might support, you know, what's the direction I'm heading in? I think that's important. Yeah. Victoria, agreed, and having you guide us helped me. Lovely, Victoria. Well, I've got quite a lot of practices that I can share with Shine that they can pass on to you. So Amanda, relaxing for me too, but when asked to introduce a thought, my mind did race with lots of things. Yes, can understand that. Just concentrated back on the breathing then. So Amanda, where are you? I can't see you. Oh yes, there you are. Yeah, lovely. Very skillful of you, Amanda. So that's brilliant. That's the beginnings of coming back. So you had an experience, you noticed your mind was racing, it moved away from where you wanted to be, yeah, and it moved into this racing, what's going on, don't think I understand. And what did? You came back to the breath. That's absolutely brilliant. That is the mindfulness practice. To have something to come back to that just offers you a little bit more stability on a good day. Because on a bad day, the mind just races off again. We just patiently learn to come back. That's what we're doing all the time. We're just patiently coming back. Great. So Lauren, I have a lot of pain too, so it's hard to not notice that more. But agree with the others about having your guidance. Yes, absolutely. And when you've got a little bit more of practice, Amanda, well, no, it isn't Amanda, it's Lauren. Lauren, when you have a bit more practice with mindfulness, you will find that there are ways in which you can practice using mindfulness to help you hold the pain in a kind of kinder way. But on an hour-and-a-half long session, I doubt that you're going to get much of that, but we'll see. I mean, who knows? It would be great if you did. Be really, oh yes, look, I like that. It'd be great if you did. Okay, Jonathan, it gives me a reason to take mindfulness on daily to keep practicing to ensure that reduction in overwhelm is in daily life, helping my symptoms. Yes, Jonathan, yes. I'm going to put a slight warning in here. mindfulness is not a miracle cure. I mean, funnily enough, I was working with somebody not yesterday, the day before, and she was saying that when she had been introduced to mindfulness, it felt to her like a miracle. But I think she's lucky. It didn't feel to me like a miracle. And I was introduced to mindfulness when I had cancer and was going through treatment. Jonathan, are we going to see you on screen? That would be that would be lovely. No, maybe not. And so I think for some people, you know, you can learn. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. So nice to see you. It would be lovely to have more screens showing. It doesn't matter what you're wearing or anything. It would be lovely. Lauren, there's a nice heart there. Yes, so it can be very, very helpful, but we'll just take a few steps at a time. And this is a taster session. So who knows, Kynwyn and Emma might get me back to do other sessions. I'd be willing to do that. And we could learn a little bit more. But ideally, you need to access an 8-week course. And ideally, you need to access it when you finish treatment. Not a good idea to do this during treatment. Taster session's great, but you need to wait until you've finished treatment to have the capacity to get the practice done. It's too much otherwise. But yes, little and often is great. That's wonderful. Okay, so intention is really important for mindfulness. And I don't know, did you notice on the slide of intention? I really like this. So it's a little bit like you know, those lovely wooden posts, those finger posts that point towards maybe point towards a footpath. And I kind of like the cartoon that somebody called Julie in the Netherlands did for this, because it's kind of like, what direction are we heading in? You know, I mean, for somebody like Jonathan, you know, somebody like Lauren, somebody like Alison with pain, and lots of others here as well. Are we feeding what's difficult? Are we actually kind of inevitably getting quite stuck there? Of course, so easy for that to happen. And that just feeds the distress, it feeds the trauma. So understandable. But actually, can we just manage to kind of almost unhook that sort of stickiness to the really difficult stuff, and actually put us back into a place where there's a bit more stability, a bit more holding, a bit more feet on the floor, you know, a bit more choices, like Amanda was making. Okay, my mind is spinning out. What am I going to do about it? I'm actually not going to go there. I'm going to come back to my feet on the floor. Sometimes we have to come back many, many times. And some days are just rough, and it's too much. And we just start again the next day. That's all we can do, really. Okay, so I think we need to crack on a bit. So let's now move to the next thing. See if oh, good. So that's what we've been doing. So, and we've been, okay, so feet on the floor. I hope you're going to get access to these slides. Is that true, Emma? Are they going to get the slides on a PDF?
Yeah, if you're happy for us to share them, we can definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're very, very happy to share them, because that will remind people. Feet on the floor. I mean, do you notice that those feet have only got 4 toes, which always amuses me. But I really like that shape, because that's the shape we make on the sand when we're walking on the sand, you know. Feet on the floor. It's just, and it's not onomatopoeic, but anyway, it's feet on the floor. It's alliterative. That's what it is. So it kind of reminds us, the fuzz, feet on the floor. The kids are taught this in school, and it's known as Fofbok. Let me just come out, because I want to see your faces when you hear this. It's known as Fofbok. Okay, so Fof is feet on the floor. Can you imagine what Bok is? Remember kids, think of kids. Bok. Feet on floor. Jonathan, I'm sure you might be able to think of it. Go on, Kynwyn, can you think of it?
Is it bum on the floor?
It's bum on chair.
Oh, bum on chair. Boff.
Yeah.
wait.
It's great. Feet on floor, bum on chair. So there's all sorts of schools, particularly primary schools, where there's some gorgeous videos of the kids kind of doing what kids do, you know, lots of chatting. And the teacher goes, now come on, kids. They probably don't say kids. Come on, children. Fofbok. And miraculously, the kids go, oh, and they sit down and they put their feet on the floor, and there's hush. extraordinary. I mean, you know, see if you can put Fossbach on Google and see if you can get some videos of that. It's just wonderful, really wonderful. You could do it with your own children, those of you who've got kids. Okay, so let's go back to the slides again, and let's just see. Yes, we've done a bit of that. So coming back, I've been talking about. I want to show this to you. I love this slide. So one rabbit turns to the other rabbit and says, "What the hell is that?" with all the string coming out of his head or her head. And the rabbit with the string says, "Oh, it's just my mind." I just love that, because minds, it feels sometimes that the mind's just, they've just got this energy and this sort of stream of rubbish in some ways, that just really tricky stuff coming out of the head or coming out of the mind. And then the other thing to think about that is tremendously important, and actually I'd love you to take away some practices, but I would love you to take away a sense of this. And I don't know if any of you have come across this. So unpleasant experiences, pain, suffering, difficulty is like Velcro. We get stuck to it. The mind gets fixed into unpleasant. And the mind endlessly turns towards unpleasant. Whereas the pleasant stuff is like Teflon, it just slides off. So again, I want to see your faces to see if that's kind of landed with you, and I'll say a bit more about that. Yeah, so we tend to feed what's unpleasant. We tend to dwell on what we don't want. Of course we do, because we're human animals, and we have threat systems. And we're on the lookout for threat. We're on the lookout for danger, just like animals in the wild are. But what's happened is that we then get stuck on the negative thought, the negative experience, the difficulty. We kind of replay it in our minds, like that rumination, a lot. And that's the Velcro, right? And it's completely normal. It's what we do. So it's not something that you're going to change. It's something that we all do. But what we also need to remember is that the pleasant experiences, right, family members who give you some kindness, a friend who I don't know, sends you a message, maybe one of your medical people who you just know is really quite kind, but some pleasant experience, some lovely music you're listening to, I don't know, something that you can taste again, that's pleasant. You know, unless we have some level of awareness, mindfulness, then we will never notice how pleasant it is. All sorts of things happening around us that are actually, you know, can be quite wonderful, even in the midst of cancer treatment, even in the midst of anxiety. But we miss them because we're stuck in that Velcro of unpleasant. So what we learn to do is we learn to bring more of the pleasant into our lives, of actually spending more time just noticing nature. Nature is a very good ally with what's pleasant, very good ally. You know, even at this time of year, there's some lovely, I don't know, those of you who are well enough to go walking in just even a little bit of countryside, there's some lovely rose hips around. There's the leaves turning, the colour of the leaves, there's the movement of the trees, you know, there's maybe a rose on somebody's garden, you know, there's still one rose left. You know, whatever it is, there's a lot to enjoy. So just remembering, if you can, that when you get stuck in pain, when you get stuck in really negative thoughts, you know, really stuck in them, it is like Velcro. It's very, very, very normal. And there are things that we can do to come back. But if that Velcro is really stuck tight, it's hard. It's very hard. And maybe what we need to do is turn on a favorite television program and just dull out for a bit. Completely understand that. And just to be remembering that the Teflon, it slides off. The pleasant experience just slides off. We hardly even notice it. So that's quite important, that we learn with mindfulness to turn towards what's difficult. And we often learn to turn towards what's lovely and what we really enjoy and what we really appreciate. That actually helps us with the difficult. So again, I'm going to come out, I'm looking at the time, so I need to do a little bit more practice with you, but just very briefly, there is a lot of evidence in the mind. There is a lot of evidence in the brain, I mean, not the mind, the brain, that actually we have these synapses. And if we are all the time, the little linkages, the connections in the brain, if we're actually feeding linkages that take us down a track of rumination, of difficulty, of despair, of imagining the worst, of planning funerals, of all of those things that are completely normal, then that's what is being reinforced in the brain. If, on the other hand, we can remember to notice how it feels to walk through leaves. I love walking through rustling leaves and hearing the sound of the leaves and the movement, you know. If we can remember, I've got a dog who I adore who's lying down asleep here. You know, remember to just notice what a lovely face she has. Yeah, I've got a youngster living with me just now, and she gives me these enormous hugs. Her English isn't great yet, but she comes up and she says, "Trish, huggy, huggy." And even if I'm busy, it's just so lovely. It's not always lovely, I have to say. Sometimes it's like, you know, could you let me get on in just a moment? But it's if I can just stop and notice there's this little person giving me a hug. Yeah. So if we can just tune ourselves to some of those things that are lovely and really see if we can spend more time bringing them into our lives, it's very important. Okay. So I want to just remind you of 2 practices that we've done. So just as you're now, no need to change position, with your eyes open preferably, because then you can do this anywhere. Just pausing and just noticing what's going on for me right now. What's going on for me right now? And just be noticing whatever's going on right now. Might be a thought, it might be a smell. It might be a feeling of coolness of the air, might be a body sensation. It could be a mood, could be anything. What's going on right now? Just noticing. That's all you have to do. Just stop and notice. And then when you're ready, coming to a sense of feet on the floor, body on the bed. Just be noticing if you can. If you can't feel your feet, just scrunching them up a little bit. You just get a sense of contact between your feet and the floor, or your feet in the bed, or your heels on the bed, whatever it is. Just come to some sense of contact and a sense of the weight of the body moving down. So gravity is holding us close to the ground. Precious gravity, this precious ground, this precious earth. Yeah? Just really feeling that sense of being held. Okay. So coming out of that, and just be noticing that I'm going to recap a little bit. You've got 2, and I'm going to put it into the chat. You've learnt 2 practices. Where's my chat gone? There it is. You've learnt 2 practices. So you've learnt the pause. Okay, I can't spell. You've learnt the pause, and that involves the question of what is going on for me right now. Okay, what's going on for me right now? That's kind of more or less what's going on for me right now, more or less. What's going on for me right now? So we pause, we ask ourselves that question, and all we do is notice. Nothing else you need to do. You're just noticing what's going on right now. And I would encourage you to do that practice and to do it for like a few seconds. That's all you're going to do. You don't need to do it for long, a few seconds. And just do it a number of times a day if you can. You know, just whenever there's an empty space. What's going on for me right now? Oh, okay. Oh, my mind's a bit blank. Okay, and then carry on. What's going on right now? Oh, I've got a pain in my hip. Okay, let's carry on, right? So you're just learning to interrupt the automatic, because we have automatic minds that just go in loops. This is horrible. I can't stand this. Why have I got cancer? You know, I'm too young to have cancer. Whatever it is, goes in loops, right? And it's important. It's important to remember to come back. Okay. So then the other one that I've mentioned to you a lot is feet on the floor. Feet on the floor. Okay, which is foff. No, I didn't do it right. Sorry. Foff. Okay, feet on the floor. And if you want to do as the kids do, it's foff, bok. Feet on the floor, bum on the chair. All right, you remember that. Feet on the floor, bum on the chair. Foff, bok. Okay, and just like the kids, you can just do that in the moment. Don't need to close your eyes. Doesn't need to be a whole big number of meditation. You just come back, feet on the floor, bum on the chair. The disadvantage of the foff bok is that you can do this standing up. So boiling the kettle, great time to do a foff, feet on the floor. Just come back. So what I'm going to be encouraging you to do is to have a few times where you just come back, perhaps at the kettle, perhaps the first 2 steps up the stairs, perhaps as you get out of bed in the morning, yeah, or don't. But at some point you're going to get out of bed. So the first time your feet land on the floor, okay, there are my feet. I'm going to remember feet on the floor 3 times today, yeah? So what you're doing is you're gently, gently, gently just building a practice so that you can add it moment by moment by moment, just a little bit a day at a time until you build that habit, and then feet on the floor is with you. Oh, God, that feels horrible. Funny conversation with somebody. Why don't they understand? Feet on the floor. It's not going to take away the horrible. It's just going to give you some support, some stability, some groundedness to help you manage and decide what to do next. I could talk to somebody about it. I could phone up somebody in Shine. I could go to that Shine session that I really enjoyed. Yeah? Just offers you some options where you might make a choice that might be more helpful than less helpful. Okay, I'm talking a lot. I'm sorry about that. And I'm just needing to remind myself what's left on the screen. So let me just share the end of my slides with you. There you are. Remember that nice smell of rosemary. So kindness, really important to bring kindness in. Really important that, you know, you get to a day and you think, I've not done feet on the floor once, or I've been a right moody so-and-so today. Well, do the best you can. You know, kindness is a hard practice, but if you can just bring some kindness and appreciation to all that you're doing, it would be great. It would be fantastic. If we can bring kindness to our own experience, it really does. It really can transform difficulty. So what we're doing really is we're practicing as best we can so that the practice is there when you need it. Don't know what you think of this picture, but the practice is there when you need it. And we're doing it in a way that connects with others. So that's one of the things that Shine and other organizations like, well, there isn't another organization like Shine, but it's where we get the sense of there are others like me, there are others who are experiencing something similar to me. And that's so helpful, actually. It's so helpful. It's not just me. There are others just like me. So maybe I could wish them well. And maybe I could imagine that they're wishing me well as well, even though we don't know what we look like and so on. So here's the poem, which I'm going to do right at the end. Here's a picture of where I used to go when I would be working with people with cancer. And when I'd be thinking about one of the, or perhaps I felt a bit miserable for myself, but one of the people that I was working with, I would go to this cairn. You know, cairn is where you put stones on top of each other. Go to this cairn with this gorgeous view of North Wales Sea. And perhaps light a candle sometimes, but it's just a place that was special to me. So, yeah. So this is the book that I would recommend to you if you like what you've done today, and you can get you could get a secondhand one of these. If you go to World of Books, they're selling a lot of secondhand books these days, which is great. So it's called Mindfulness, A Kindly Approach to Being with Cancer. And it's got a website and it's got some recordings that are attached to the book. So, you know, if you're wanting a book, and if somebody says to you, what can I do? This might be, I've written it, but it's very much written with people like you in mind and people that I've worked with and my own experience as well. Yep. And then there's my email, trish@trishbartley.co.uk. So by all means email me or go through Shine. Might be even better to go through Shine. And but there's some practices and there's some different information. The website's a bit out of date, but it's not too bad. Okay, so let's come back to all of you. Let's do one more, feet on the floor. So let's just, with your eyes open, just do one more. One more. What's going on right now? What's going on for me right now? See if you can do this with your eyes open, and then you can do it anywhere. If you always close your eyes, you're limited to the place that you can do this. You couldn't do it in the supermarket, or driving a car, or you know, having treatment, perhaps. I don't know. Might be able to, having treatment. So what's going on for me right now? Just interrupting and noticing. Noticing the rug on my body, noticing the feet on the floor, as we move now to feet on the floor. Weight going down. Sense of points of contact between the soles of your feet or your body and what it's resting on. And there may be pain there. I appreciate there may well be pain there. Just see if you can just hold the pain in this kind of kindly awareness, perhaps with the breath, perhaps with your feet. And moving, if it's helpful to move, it's fine to move. Just moving with mindful awareness, moving with kindness. Yeah. So the pause and feet on the floor, and then just gently coming to the breath if that's helpful for you. So you've got those 3 practices to do separately, or you can do them, you can join them up and do them together. A pause, feet on the floor, coming to the breath. You can sort of join it up and make it into a slightly longer practice if you want to. But you can play with those 3. It's been great talking to you, great sort of meeting you a little bit. Hope it's been helpful. Yeah, thanks, Victoria, that's nice. So over to you, Emma, because I know you want to do a bit of a poll, don't you, as we finish up?
Thank you. Yes, I'll just I'll stop spotlighting you, if that's all right, and then we can see everyone in one big screen.
Yeah,
but I'm sure everyone would like to join me in thanking you so much for that session. I think it was you know, when you're running an event like this, like you don't necessarily think about yourself benefiting from the content of the session, but that was really great for me, just to be able to, like, I feel like I've reset a little bit from all that whirling stuff. But thank you so much for your time and for joining us. And I think there's some lovely comments coming through with the thank you. Oh, and someone's reminded us about the poem, so we need to go back.
Poem, yes.
Let me just do a little. Should we do a little round of applause first, though, from if you haven't got your mic on, because I think yeah, that was brilliant. Thank you so much. And then we'll go back to your poem, and then I have
okay, yes, let's have the poem. I'm sorry, I completely forgot, having promised you the poem before. Let me see if I can find it for you. So those of you who'd like just to take in this poem, just close your eyes. Those of you who want to read it as I'm doing it, please do. This is a guy who an amazing guy. I won't tell you about him, but amazing guy. I came feeling I carried the world on my shoulders. I leave knowing it is the earth that carries me. I came thinking awareness of the mind was important. I leave knowing awareness of the body is indispensable. I came as a follower of my thoughts. I leave in the service of my heart. Yeah, it always makes me, yeah, I love it. I leave in the service of my heart. So all the best to all of you. Lovely, lovely, lovely meeting you. Yep, great. I hope we meet again.
Thank you so much, Trish. Before you all run off, though, if you've been to another session already today, you might know that we're doing little end of session polls. So before you go, if you wouldn't mind, I'll just launch the poll. It's 2 questions. It should take you a few seconds. So it's just a rating for this particular session, and then would you recommend this session to a friend? So that would be fab if you could do that before you could go. And then just a reminder that the drinks social meetup is happening in about 6 minutes. So you've probably got time to go for a week or have a drink, and come back if you want to come say hi. Although that one's scheduled for an hour, you can just drop in for 10 minutes if you want, or just if you've got any questions about the rest of Connect, you can ask them there, or just come and have a chat and tell us about how your day's gone. So Thank you again, Trish, and thank you everyone for joining today. And we will, hopefully I'll see you in drinks in 5 minutes. And if not, maybe I'll see you tomorrow or over the next few days.